Well, thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning, or in fact actually now this afternoon. Our presentation today is looking to try and answer the question, is whether increasing productivity and financial transparency within your business represents an opportunity or a threat. Now, just to get some idea of roles here, can I ask you, if you happen to be an accountant in practice, could you put your hand up? So, yep, a few of those. Accountant in business? Yep, a few of those. And anybody that's managing director or senior manager of a business? And we have one over there. Excellent. Okay, one last question. How many of you actually heard of Compleat before you arrived here today? Nobody. Okay, well that's actually good. I mean, I'm not really surprised, and the reason being is actually, as an organisation, we've been around for a long time, and we are now moving down into the SME sector. Our primary business is that we extend the functionality of every accounting system through tight integration to enable the automation of the entire purchasing process with a product called Compleat. Today we're talking about Compleat, and that enables you to raise a requisition, put it through an approval process, get it approved, receipting, capture invoices, bring them in, match them, two-way match and a three-way match, and post them to the accounting system. So that's our fundamental business. And we have about 20,000 users, and we process about £6 billion worth of invoices per annum. So this is a subject we know quite a lot about. Today's conversation really started about 2.5 years ago, funnily enough, in a pub. And the question that we asked ourselves is, if you took all the technology that we already understand and you took artificial intelligence and machine learning, how much of the accounts payable process could you remove? And so we looked at the different requirements of that, and the first requirement is, in order to be able to actually make this available to the largest marketplace, it needs to be plug and play. In other words, you need to be able to allow the integration of this application into any accounting system. And as most accounting systems are actually deployed locally, you have to be able to do that, but also with regards to the new cloud applications such as Xero, QuickBooks, and that growing marketplace. So tick that box, because that's what we already do with regards to our larger product. You also need to actually look at the AP function, and how much of that function can you actually automate through AI and machine learning. And AP is ideal for it, very simply because most of it is repetitive. And the final part is the digitization of inbound invoices, because obviously you receive an awful lot of invoices these days via email as a PDF, but also receive them as paper. You need to be able to capture those, and because that makes a fundamental difference in terms of the level of automation that you can achieve. And also the final point is, if you want to make it global, obviously it's got to deal with language and currency, etc. So, what else is important? Well, the people in this room. In other words, accountants in business, because they want to automate it for the benefit of their business. Accountants in practice, in terms of being able to offer this as a service, in terms of making their clients aware of it, or as an outsourced service, in terms of actually undertaking this for their clients. But the last one actually is the most important. The MD and the senior management, is what is the value to them of this automation, because at the end of the day, it's them that's going to make the decision whether to do this or not and pay the money. So we also added in two final parts of this. The first one is about provision of information. So financial intelligence, the ability to give everybody in the organization a real-time view of the financial truth associated with the entire purchasing process. So what's happening on their suppliers, what's the status, etc. And also the ability to tick a box, which is fundamental to accounting practices, which is benchmark this against the Chartered Institute of Internal Audit for best practice processing. So what is accounts payable? Actually, it is the additional cost that you incur in diligently processing every invoice that arrives within your business, putting it through a process, approval process, and ending up paying it. And the objective is to remove as much of that work as it's possible to remove. Something that you may not know, if you're accountants in practice, is it is an absolute wild west out there in terms of the way that organizations undertake this process. So from the invoice arriving, going through an approval process and ending up in the accounts. And some organizations, let's just say that they're very, very limited process and very, very limited control in terms of the way that this is actually undertaken. And there's a lot of risk associated with that in terms of cash flow implications, in terms of fraud, in terms of duplicate payments. At the other end of the scale, there are some extremely sophisticated processes in place and require a small army to undertake it and all the cost that involves, and also the administrative burden on the management that's then expected to sign it off. So the goal is, if you're looking at this process, is deliver one simple, fast, seamless process to every organization, tick the blocks in terms of compliance, but also deliver value to everybody involved. So if you look at the AP process, two components, I'll be very brief on this. There's the labor component, which is just moving that piece of paper through the process, and then there's the knowledge component. We want to eliminate all of the non-knowledge applications. So all the labor, get rid of that. On the knowledge side, because you do the same thing, an invoice comes in and it's always posted for this particular supplier to these general ledger accounts and is always approved by those process, automate that as well. And when you do both of those, you end up removing anywhere up to 90% of the entire account payable function and cost. So, this is the process. It's, if you like, what we all do, although everybody does it in a completely different way. And what we're looking to do is take an invoice. We want to capture it first and foremost. In this slide, the invoice register should be the most important component. We know we've got it, and then we know where it's going. It's been passed out. It's with somebody for approval. It's perhaps under query. Without that information in the invoice register, then nobody in the company knows where anything is. Yet when you go out to most organizations, in small organizations, particularly in growing organizations, that component doesn't exist. So with regards to the risk of the company, with regards to the damage to the company, it can be considerable. What we're now going to do is look at this process from end to end, and I'm going to hand over to James and Charlotte, and they are going to basically share their experiences with you of our conversations that we're having with managing directors of companies, because at the end of the day, whether you're an accountant in practice, whether you're an accountant in business, and you think this is a good idea for your business, you're going to need to convince them. So, thank you very much, and over to James and Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Hi, I'm James, and I'm going to be portraying an MD of a growing business. So, at the moment, I'm constantly running out of time, and I'll need to think about hiring an accounts payable person. This is going to free up my time, but also my general manager's time.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte and I'll be portraying the accountant. I'm a partner in my practice and I've worked with James's business since day one. I've been setting up his company, advising him on the accounting software, but all I'm doing for him at the moment is monthly bookkeeping and statutory end-of-year accounts and returns. I'm looking to leverage technology to make not only my internal processes more efficient, but also to provide more value-added services to my clients and hopefully expand my client base. So I'm going to give James a quick call to catch up. Hi James, it's Charlotte from Be Smart Accounting. How are you?
Hi Charlotte. Yeah, good, thanks. Always busy. What's up?
Well, funnily enough, I just wanted to catch up with you as I noticed you're getting busier. Your business is clearly growing and I can see you're processing a lot more invoices these days. A lot of them have a variety of signatures on by the time they get to me. I take it there's other people ordering goods in your organisation now.
Yeah. I suppose over the last year we've hired an additional 4 people. They're now starting to order things and we're struggling to keep track of the invoices.
Okay, so you're requiring other members of the team to approve your supplier invoices, so 4 approvers plus you. Based on what I'm receiving, you're processing around 100 invoices a month?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's getting busier by the day. It could be up to 200 by the end of the year if we get a couple of these key contracts. Our general manager has asked with help with accounts payable, and I'm thinking we might have to hire someone because of this. I need him to concentrate on more important things like increasing our credit limits with our main suppliers.
Okay, well, it definitely sounds like you're in need of some extra help. We're currently partnering with a new software supplier that I think will really benefit you. It will solve your immediate resource problem, remove most of the manual processes, and free up everybody's time to focus on building the business. So, can I come in and see you and show what you could achieve?
Sounds great. As soon as possible.
Okay. So, here is the solution I mentioned to you on the phone. This is Compleat. So, it's a browser-based system, hosted in the cloud, multi-integration, multi-company, and it's totally self-service, which means no implementation. This is our home screen. The first thing I'll draw your attention to is this email address just here. So this is unique and will be associated to your account, so you can provide this directly to suppliers or use internally to forward on invoices via email. So at the moment, how many invoices would you say you receive as PDFs versus paper?
As a guest, about 70% PDF and about 30% in the post.
Okay, and have you ever asked your suppliers to send invoices via email PDF?
Well, I've never really thought about that. We usually just print them off and process them.
Okay, so we've actually found that most suppliers will be happy to send you PDF documents, as most accounting softwares have the ability to produce PDF sales invoices.
Okay, but what happens if they're unable? I mean, I've got some really small suppliers.
So the way it works is all invoices are emailed to this e-invoicing email address. You can forward them on yourself, or you can provide it direct to your suppliers, as I said, which speeds up the process even more. This sends them via the Compleat e-invoicing portal. The portal reads the invoice, extracts the data, header and line, and delivers that into the application. PDF invoices provide 99.99% accuracy because the portal uses artificial intelligence technology, but you can still scan and email in paper documents in the exact same way, and the portal uses OCR to extract these.
Okay, brilliant.
So let's actually have a look at the system. So let's have a look at what an invoice looks like when it's sent in direct from your supplier. So into Manage Invoices, this is our unprocessed tray. So any invoice that is received by the portal, the data is captured, it's delivered here. This is an operator tray and effectively acts as your invoice register that captures every invoice on arrival so nothing will ever be lost.
What's an operator?
So an operator is the person that currently codes supplier invoices and sends them off for approval.
Okay, so basically what my general manager is going to be doing.
Exactly. So the next tray I'll show you is the submitted tray, and this is for invoices that have been submitted for approval but not yet approved. So this means that operator users can see where the invoice is in the process and who it's sat with for next approval. As you can see here, this is my next approver. But we'll focus on the unprocessed tray to begin with. So each line here is an individual invoice that's been delivered into the portal and into the application. We've got key information, date received, supplier, reference, obviously net VAT and gross. But let me show you what that looks like. So this is our invoice summary. So straight away you can see that the system has captured all the appropriate information. We've got a header, and we've also got the line items, description, unit cost, etc. Do you currently hold supplier bank details in your Sage system?
Yeah, in Sage 50 for some of them.
Okay, and do you actually check these against the invoice at the moment?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure if we recognise a supplier, we pay the invoice.
So hypothetically speaking, if I were to send you an invoice for one of your smaller suppliers, but with my bank details on, you'd pay me?
I've never really thought about it like that, but probably yes.
Okay, so something else that Compleat will do is, because we're reading the additional data, not just the header and line, we can cross-check supplier bank details if you hold them in your accounting software. So as you can see here, we've got a little green piggy bank, which means that the bank details on the invoice match the bank details that we're holding within the accounting software. We've seen a real growth in financial fraud, so having this kind of anti-fraud validation is really important and will give everyone peace of mind.
Great.
So what we're seeing here is the invoice summary, and the red lines are indicating that an action needs to be taken. So what I'm going to do is quick action and pre-fill my account code. So I might want to say materials purchase, for example. I'm going to do that for every line. Click save, and that's okay. What I'll now do is click through to edit the actual invoice. And it's at this point that you can view the image of the original invoice, and you never lose visibility on this wherever you are in the process.
Okay, but what happens if my supplier sends multiple documents in the email? A lot of the time they send delivery notes and other things like that.
Okay, so iComplete will capture any additional documentation that is received via email with the invoice. So not only will you never lose visibility on the invoice, but you can also see any supporting documentation. In this case, it's just the body of the email from the supplier, but any delivery notes, etc., will also be provided. Click back to my invoice. So on the right-hand side here, we can see that the data that's been captured from the invoice has been broken down for us. So our H is for header. I've got line 1 and line 2. Now these are green because I've already preset my account code at invoice level. If I wanted to code at line level and change that, we've got the granularity to do that. I would just amend the account code just here. But what I'll do is go back to the header stage. Do you use any analysis items at the moment, cost centers or projects?
Yeah, we've actually started using departments.
Okay, so the system will pull through any active analysis fields that you're using and make them available for coding within iComplete. So these codes here for my cost centers are pulled directly from my integrated accounting software for me to select, which I will do as such.
What happens if I add a new supplier?
So you would create any new suppliers in the accounting software exactly as you do now, and that's pulled through in real time via the integration. So as we can see, all my lines are now green, which confirms that this invoice is ready to be sent for approval. So at this stage, I could add a comment if I wanted to. But before I send that off, I will just ask, have you ever paid a duplicate invoice?
Yeah, maybe a couple.
Probably that you're aware of. So iComplete will also protect you against that with something that we call a supplier reference check. So this here is the supplier invoice number, which is read from the invoice. So the system uses this to check for duplicates. So if it reads the same supplier reference on a second invoice, it will flag to the user that this is a duplicate. This means you'll never post the same invoice twice into your accounting software, and it also removes the risk of duplicate payments. But what I will do now is select one of my available approval workflows. I'll pick marketing and send it off for approval. So because I'm sat in the unprocessed tray, it's brought me straight through to the next transaction that needs handling. But what I will do is go back and show you in the submitted tray. So as we can see, that Crown Venue Catering invoice has dropped straight into the submitted tray. And I can see that my next approver is with marketing. So what I'll do is show you what it looks like from an approver's perspective. If I log in as my marketing manager, straight away you can see that this user has got different levels of access. So approvers only really are interested in invoices that they need to look at and any reports around that, which we'll look at very shortly. If I go into the Manage Invoices tab, straight away again, I can see that we've only got access to awaiting approvals, which is specific to this user, and the approved and denied is exactly the same, only invoices that this user has actually touched. So I'll click through into the invoice. I get the same summary page and I can view the coding, but I'm going to click through to my documents and timeline. So as an approver, again, I've got visibility on the invoice, the supporting documentation, but also here we have our approval timeline, which is effectively my audit trail. So I can see who it's been submitted by and when, and I can see that I'm the only approver at this stage. I could add a comment if I wanted to, but I'm just going to approve this transaction. I'm aware of it, I'm happy with that. So what I'll do is show you what that looks like in the approved tray. So straight away, that's been posted into our approved tray. And what it's doing now is posting that transaction into my integrated accounting software. And what it will do in about 30 seconds is pull back through a journal posting number associated to that transaction, as we can see down here.
Okay, looks good. But for most of my suppliers will always be coded the exact same way. Would we still have to code every invoice and every line every time?
Very good question. So because with my experience with my customers has shown me that anywhere between 60 to 80% of supplier invoices are coded in the same way and sent to the same person for approval each time. So I'll show you how we manage this within iComplete. So let's have a look at another invoice. Again, it's giving me red because action needs to be taken, but instead of doing it at this stage, I'm going to go through to the edit. And what we have here is a map supplier defaults function. And this basically means that from the very first invoice that arrives from a supplier, the information that you currently know about the account code, the tax code, etc., every time can be preset and coded here. So I've got all of my available codes pulled through from my accounting software, and I can select those. Okay. But what I will do, first of all, so this will give you kind of your best case scenario, which means that the invoice effectively will go directly from your supplier via the portal, be automatically coded, and arrive directly to the approver. So I'll show you what that will look like. If I log in as a different approver, I'm going to click through to view my invoices. So I've got an invoice here awaiting my approval. Got the information, but if I click through to documents and timeline, again, I can see where this has come from, but I can see the comment here is that this was auto-submitted. So this has only taken a second or two from when the supplier has actually sent the invoice in. I can see that I'm the first step in the approval, and then it's going to go to a member of my senior management for second level approval. I'm just going to approve that. So with this solution, you'll also have access to a mobile approvals application, which is great for anyone on the go or out of the office.
Yeah, so you won't be able to see this, but this is a mobile application. Very easy to use for approval, especially with MDs on the go. From here, I can actually see the attachment, and I'll open that one, and I can actually see the invoice image from here, including all the lines. So all I can do on the go, press approve, and it will go to the next stage of the approval chain.
Okay.
Now, what if I don't want to approve every single invoice?
Okay, so with this solution, we can create approval workflows. So let me show you how easy that is to do. So if I go into my manage workflows, we've separated these out by department. If I select this one just here, so you can see that this is already a multi-step approval process. We've got a member of junior finance, and then we've also got our head of department. But it might be the case that at the head of department stage, I'd like to turn it into a group, so I can add another user. If I select fill just there, and a group approval means that only one person in that approval group needs to approve the invoice before it goes to the next step in the process. So it's kind of spreading the burden of approvals where needed. So you said there might be occasions that you don't want to see every invoice that's sent via a workflow, but maybe you would still want to check ones over a certain value, for instance?
Yeah, I'd usually want to double check anything over £1,000.
Ooh. Okay, so what we would do in that case is we might add you at the end of the process. We've got MD. I can select my user. New. And what I can also do is configure a threshold. So this is effectively a lower limit that will kick in based on the net value of the invoice. So if I select that. Now currently you're at the end of the process, but if you didn't want to be at the end because it's over £1,000, you might actually want to see that first. We can just drag and drop you to position 1 for this particular workflow. The approval workflows are dynamic and flexible and tailorable to every business requirements.
Great. We're really struggling with supplier queries at the moment. They're constantly calling me to chase up payment. Could this system help me with that?
Absolutely. So because iComplete will give you visibility on every invoice wherever it is in the process from the second it arrives. So if I check our approved tab, so you've got a supplier on the phone chasing payment with a query about an invoice. Straight away you can filter by supplier. Oh. Filter there. And I could also filter by supplier reference number. So I'm looking for an invoice. Straight away I've got access to that very particular invoice. I'll click through. Again, I view the summary information. What I'll do is click through to the documents and timeline. So if you've got the supplier on the phone, you know that this invoice has been approved, it's gone through the process, I can see it's been posted to my accounting software, but I can also check the payment status. So I can retrieve that information back from the accounting software. So while you've got that supplier on the phone, you can confirm that that invoice has been paid. If I take you back to the grid, you might also want to record the fact that you've had that conversation. So you're looking at supply management. At this stage, you might want to add a note, and you might want to say, spoke to Mark, confirmed payment. If I add that note, it's date and time stamped, so any colleagues of yours that get the same phone call from Mark chasing payment, not only can they see that that invoice has been paid, but they can track any previous conversations that you've had with them.
Okay. What other information would you hold in the system about my suppliers?
So as I mentioned earlier, because we're capturing all of the invoice data, Compleat amalgamates that into some reports. So if I click through here. So the first one we'll look at is the supplier spend report. So I can select my supplier. And I can flex it by the period. Okay, it's not giving me any information. What I can do is drill down. I need to let's find one where we've actually spent some money with them. Okay, if I click down, I can see what makes up that that report. Currently, we've got no records here. But any information that's held within that is exportable to Excel and also exportable to PDF. So if you're managing budgets or management reporting, you can export that information.
Fantastic. This is really going to help with my supplier relationships, checking what I've spent on things, getting better value. Will also help with increasing credit limits and credit accounts. This is essential for us right now as we're growing and cash flow is always tight.
Okay, so another report that will help with that is actually the cash requirements report, which is showing you exactly what you owe to who and when. So if I wanted to look at, I've got the next couple of months, I might want to flex that so I've got a weekly report. It's giving me information on the invoices that require payment. It's also pulling through my VAT repayment information quarterly, and you can also pad out and build up this report by including payroll and PAYE requirements to give you a fully comprehensive requirements report.
Yeah, that's great. Because currently my general manager is manually producing this kind of report that I get at the end of the month. So this is going to give me real-time information.
Exactly, and it will save your general manager another job. So out of interest, how do you currently decide which invoices and which suppliers you're making payments to at any time?
No real process at the moment. I just have to have enough money to pay the payroll, pay our critical suppliers, and anyone else I can.
Okay, so that's obviously not ideal. So the last piece of key functionality I'll show you is invoice packs. So an operator user can use this function to view all of the approved invoices that are available. And I might want to filter by supplier and create an invoice pack. So what I will do is send that off for approval. So you would receive an invoice pack to view. Now I'll show you what that looks like from an approver's perspective. So you'll receive a notification that there's a pack waiting your approval. I can select to approve this pack. Now I can not only see the invoices that my AP clerk has included in the pack, but actually I can access the other available approved invoices. So I might actually decide that no, I don't want to pay this one, I don't want to pay this one, and I'm just going to create a pack with these two invoices, and that's what I'm going to approve. So if I show you what that looks like, an invoice pack is a PDF document. It's got a summary page on the front, and if I scroll down, I've got, again, the summary of the invoice. I've got my approval timeline, which is my audit trail. And if I scroll down, again, I've got the original image of the invoice. So you might use this to commit to payment runs and as an internal process.
Makes sense.
So, what do you think?
Looks great. It's definitely going to help my business. It's going to free up my time and my general manager's time. We definitely wouldn't need to hire someone, but I guess it's going to be pretty expensive because it's got so much functionality, and realistically, how long is this going to take to set up?
So for 5 users and around 100 invoices per month, to put it into perspective, iComplete will literally cost you over the year less than half of what you'd pay in recruitment fees alone to hire someone. And as for setup, we can do it now in 30 seconds.
Sounds great. Sign me up.
Thank you.
We're going to hopefully have just a few minutes left for questions. So I just really want to summarize what we're really showing there. And that is, we talked at the very beginning about whether this is an opportunity or a threat. In some degree, it depends on your perspective. What we've done is removed all of the labor content through automation. And we've also automated between 60 and 80% of the knowledge content simply because it is repetitive work. So the overall savings that we're delivering over the AP function are close to 90%. And that really now gets to the point whereby it is fundamentally changing the rules about what accounts payable is actually about. But because at the same time is we're delivering that financial visibility to everybody in the organization that needs to know. And what is perhaps more unique than anything is that in delivering best practice compliance, we're doing that at the same time as we're reducing the amount of work necessary to do it, which is normally the opposite. So I want to finish off before we have questions in terms of how potentially you present this within your organization, because whether in fact you're talking to one of your clients in terms of automation or whether you're talking to your own MD, is that this happens to be my 7th startup. And over that period of time, one thing has been true. Every time my accountant comes to talk to me and talks about compliance best practice, it makes me shudder. And the reason being is because it's going to cost me money. It's probably going to cost me money in the advice that I'm being given in terms of what I need to do, and then it's going to cost me even more money in terms of the resource and the administration cost in order to deploy that best practice. It's a really bad way to start a conversation with a managing director. So I recommend that you don't. But if you turn around and actually start talking about what the value is as a managing director of startups, I care about cash flow. It determines how fast we can grow. It's the biggest risk, if you like, and close management of that is crucial. And I don't want to know where I am at the end of the month. I want to know where I am all of the time. And this provides that information. How much do I care about my suppliers? If you're growing, they are critically important. You need to be able to pay them on time, because if you do, they will potentially give you the credit limit to start off with, so you get a credit account, and they will then grow that credit account with you if you can demonstrate that you are on top of your processes and continue to pay them. And that's crucial to building those credit limits. I don't like spending money on admin. I much prefer to spend it on other things that are more productive. So getting rid of 90% of the admin is something, well, yeah, I'm going to sort of like buy into that straight away. And I want to remove duplicate invoices. I want to remove the risk of fraud, because at the end of the day, why would anybody want to remain open to those? So if you approach a managing director or a CEO with that sort of proposition, our experience is the vast majority of them are very keen to have the conversation. And for accounting practices, who are trying to find ways to get back through the door to their clients, it is a great way of opening that door and engaging them in something that's going to deliver a great deal of benefit to them. So I'm going to finish off with regards to, is this an opportunity or a threat to your business? It's an opportunity for progressive finance people, for accounting practices that want to basically change the way they work, because frankly, I was a bought ledger clerk in 1976, and most of the companies I visit do exactly what I did in 1976. So it's about time we changed. But at the same time, yeah, I suppose it is a threat. And it's a threat if you like the way the things are today and you don't want to change. Because if somebody, the accounting practice, the accountant has a word with your MD and explains what's on offer, our experience is the vast majority will change straight away. So thank you guys in terms of the pitch. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? How much does it cost? How does it cost? I think the easiest way is that if you take a 5-user system, so it's 5 individuals using it, processing 50 invoices per month, it's about 65 quid. Or £9 a user. And it will drop down, depending on how big you get, that drops down to £2 a user and drops down to 20p a transaction. It is an absolute fraction of what you're paying at the moment. There's always a key question, price, isn't it? Okay, any other questions at all? Okay, well, if you get the opportunity, do come and visit our stand. Thanks very much for your time.